Hey everybody, welcome to Chainout, your favorite disc golf podcast. I'm Jeremy. With me as always is your favorite co-host, Darryl. How you doing, buddy?
I was expecting a big intro. I didn't get the intro. I'm doing fantastic, Jeremy. Excited to be here for episode 13. Unlucky for some, but it's not going to be unlucky for us. We're going to have this fantastic episode, I know it feels.
And I can say, if you really wanted one, I can go, DJ Darryl, another one.
There you go. You see, you start these things, Jeremy. You can't just stop them. Give the people what they want. Or just me, anyway. I don't know.
Well, Darryl, the thing is if we start stacking these things, the whole show is just going to be, Jeremy, you got to do that. Darryl, you got to do that. Jeremy, you got to do that.
I can't say I just disagree with it anymore. I have to say I respect your opinion, but you're wrong.
Yeah, that's true. You have that. That is your phrase.
Yeah. I
like to borrow it from time to time, but
well, only when you're using it against me, and I don't think that's fair.
Yes.
These things are not meant to be used back against each other. So anyway, how have you been? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, week has been good. Looking forward to another jam-packed weekend of disc golf. Just did putting league last night, and tomorrow is indoor clinic, and then Saturday is winter league, and on Sunday we might possibly get to play with one of our friends of the show.
We possibly might, yeah. It depends on our schedules, but it's been a long time coming. If we can get out there and do it, then that'd be fantastic. If not, I'm sure we'll get out there again sometime soon. Are you enjoying the weather? You fluctuating temperature person?
Yeah, all good here.
Yeah, we'd had some snow in the Edmonton area, so not too much, but another couple of inches just on top of the already existing compacted snow. So maybe winter league, who knows? Maybe you'll have a bit of a tough time finding your discs there, but you've got a lot of people on your yard, so hopefully you don't have any problems this week. Speaking of finding discs, that is going to lead me very neatly into my first topic I want to talk about.
All right.
Have you ever heard people when you say to them, have you ever won any prizes? Have you ever won a competition? And then they normally say, I never win prizes. I don't enter competitions.
Are you trying to hit me in the heart here or what?
Well, that's the reason you don't win, is because you don't enter competitions. If you enter competitions, what do they say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
It's not what do they say, dude. It's what does Wayne Gretzky say, and then maybe Michael Scott quoting Wayne Gretzky, whichever way you want to look at it. But go ahead, keep going.
Regardless of who said it. So recently, I entered, back on my DJ Disc Golf channel, I entered a giveaway by Alden Harris, Pro Tour Disc Golf for Alden Harris. This was prior to him switching companies, and it's one of those things that I'm only kind of learning now, being in this disc golf world for about a year or so, that, there's those telltale signs that when disc golfers are giving discs away, doing giveaways and things like that, generally means that they're getting ready to move to a different manufacturer. But Alden Harris did a 100 disc giveaway. You just had to follow him on Instagram, follow him on YouTube, and probably tag your friends, I think was the requirement. So yeah, I signed up for the giveaway, tagged 2 friends, and then didn't think anything of it. A couple of days later, I get this message, this notification. This Alden Harris sent me a message, and I was thinking,
what?
Is this the real Alden Harris, or am I getting spammed right here? But nope, I was one of the lucky 100 to get one of Alden Harris's 100 discs that he was giving away. And then, a couple of days later, we actually found out that he moved to Discmania. So that probably made a little bit more sense why he was giving away his Prodigy collection. But finally, probably after about 2 or 3 weeks, I got my disc.
It came in the mail today?
It came in the mail today. Any guesses what disc it is? I mean, I know you know because I've already told you, but let's just play along for the listeners. Any guesses?
Right. Well, I'm going to judge by the way the bead is made on that disc, and the rounded edge. I'm going to have to say maybe that's a mid-range disc. That's going to be my guess there.
It is a mid-range disc, yes. I won't keep you in suspenders any longer. It is a 180 gram M4 400 plastic. He was giving away a few discs. There were a few actually, discs that he'd played with, beat-in discs. This is a brand new disc. But the good thing, and the reason why it's going to go, this is not going to be a thrower. This is going to be an on-the-shelf disc. This is going to be a wall hanger for sure. Is because...
Is that his autograph on there?
That is a signed Alden Harris M4 with his stamp on there. And if you look very closely, I'm going to try and get it at the right angle. Can you see his little tour bus, right? This little van that him and Gannon, and if you ever watch any of Alden Harris's YouTube videos, there's quite a few clips of them in his little touring van thing there. So
we all know why that is too, right? Why Alden's driving the bus?
Exactly, because a certain Gannon Burr doesn't have a driving license. Yeah. So that was an awesome thing that I got in the mail today. Signed Alden Harris disc, which I thought was pretty cool. And that'll be going on by display. I put it back behind me, but obviously I wanted to show you today. So look out for it in future episodes. Thank you, Alden. It's very much gratefully received.
Well, congratulations, Darryl. And I guess that just, as you said, it just goes to show you, enter contests, good things can happen.
There you go. And, while we're talking about contests and things like that, it was quite a while ago. It was just after I first started playing in disc golf. I started following Ace Runners. A bit of a shout out to them as well, another Canadian retailer. And they ran a competition. I forget what their requirements was, but whatever the criteria was, I won. I met the criteria and I was chosen to be the winner. And I won an MVP Black Hole HD basket, which is an awesome prize. I mean, that was worth everything on its own. But then a Discraft starter set and an Ace Runners cap and a Glow Reco. So 2 competitions that I've entered. Well, I've probably entered a few more than that, but Instagram giveaways.
Nice work.
They are legit. You can get some good stuff. So yeah, there you go.
Well, Darryl, that is amazing. Yeah. I'm excited about that. But you know what else I'm excited about?
Tell me, Jeremy. Tell me, what are you excited for?
I am excited for our guest tonight.
Yeah.
We've got another awesome guest to bring on the show.
We have awesome guests every week. We're just keep lining them up and bringing them on, making our podcast what it is.
Well, there was that episode not too long ago where the guest I was talking to was a little bit lackluster, but I think his name was I'm talking about the episode with just you and me.
Just me and you, yeah, exactly. I hope that's the one you were talking about. Yeah.
Of course it was. Of course it was. So I'm going to give an intro here and bring our guest on.
Go for it.
So our guest tonight is a local MPO player. You've likely seen him both playing and sponsoring tournaments over the years. His brother and him make quite the dynamic duo in the disc golf world. He also takes care of us disc golfers when we're injured. If you haven't guessed it yet, our guest tonight is Tristan Piska.
Hey guys.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing not too bad here tonight.
Good. Hopefully you're not burning the midnight oil. You're not working this late.
I actually just finished. Yeah, wow. Tonight was one of my late shifts here at the clinic, so did not even have time to get home. No, I was treating until about 20 minutes ago.
Oh wow! And I know you. Well, I know when I visited you, you also treat at 7 a.m. So don't tell me that they're 12-hour shifts, are they?
No, typically not. But some of the con side of working in the healthcare industry is you got to be working when people are not working. Right? To get the patients to come in. So typically, as physios, we'll work some combo of some nice early morning shifts and some later shifts. But on the disc golf side, that means that I also have some days where I'm off early enough. I can maybe sneak in around on my way home. And today, even though I was working late, I didn't start until lunch. So when the grass is greener outside, you can usually find me trying to sneak in a nice little 9 a.m. round.
Yeah, and I bet when you do sneak those rounds in, it's a lot less busy than when Darryl and I head out to Rundle on a Saturday in the middle of the summer.
It's true. On these early days, typically my Tuesdays and Thursdays right now is Rundle at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning is certainly not as busy as it is on a Saturday.
Yeah. Do you have anyone that you can go with on a Tuesday at 9 in the morning, or are they typically solo rounds?
A lot of those are solo rounds. Yeah. So, but that's all right. It gives me a chance to throw 2 or 3 shots, and I kind of get to play around with it. Maybe I'll play like an only mid range, or an only forehand, or an only backhand to try to work on some stuff at the same time.
How do you rate those? Do you think those? I mean, obviously, I've done one forehand only round, and I think it improved. It benefited me because it forced me to throw shots that I wouldn't. Not only I was forced to throw shots that I would normally throw, but also when you miss your throw and you end up in a weird location, then you're trying to throw a forehand shot that really you should be throwing a forehand shot from where you are, right? So you have to get creative. But do you put a lot of weight, being an MPO player, in those putter only rounds, mid range rounds, driver rounds?
I put a lot of weight for sure in like the low number of disc rounds, so like 1 disc round, 2 disc round, that kind of a thing, because I think that makes you do the work and not let the disc do the work for you. So I'll bring my nice straight mid range out and play around with just that. And if I need a hyzer shot, then I need to be the hyzer, right? I can't just let the super overstable disc do it for me. I think that can really help you kind of work on your angles and really work on like, the variety of shots that you can make a disc do.
And you're really going to get to know that disc well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go, Jeremy. That's another suggestion. We keep getting suggestions for different rounds each week. We've done the Desert Island disc round with our buddy Mark. We've done a couple of different courses in one day. Now we're going to have to go out there and maybe pick one of the maybe we won't pick a disc from the Desert Island disc. Maybe we'll pick a different disc, but definitely we'll have to get out there and do a single disc or a 1 or a 2 disc round as well.
Especially if you're playing the same courses all the time, right? Like unfortunately in Edmonton, it's getting better and better each year, but we don't have dozens of courses to choose from, right? So if it's your 3rd round at Rundle this week, then switch it up.
Yeah, that's a really good point because like I'm pushing 209 hole rounds at Langholm because it's walking distance from my house. And I throw the same shots all the time. I never get bored of that because I'm still trying to perfect those shots. But you're right. That is a great way to maybe try some forehand lines that I wouldn't try on the backhand shots, right? So great idea. Well, Tristan, we know you, or I know you. Darryl's going to get to know you, but I don't know if everybody out there in the disc golf world that's listening to us does. So I'm going to give you a chance to give us a little bit of your history, but as you know, on Chainout, we don't do it straight up and say, tell us how you got into disc golf. You have to come up with your superhero origin story or your disc golf origin story. So I've got it right here. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So maybe when you were younger, you were a little smaller in stature and wanted to join the army, but unfortunately they denied you each time you tried. So you took an experimental super serum. It developed you into an amazing and tall disc golf superhero. You've never looked back, and from this day on, you ask everyone to call you Captain Tristan. Now, that may not be how you got into disc golf, but why don't you tell us how you did?
Do I get to look like Chris Evans in this scenario too, or no?
You mean you don't already?
Not quite. My origin disc golf. So I got into it through my brother. A lot of people may know him, Gabe, my younger brother. He's about 2.5-ish years younger than me. And so he started playing when he was early in high school. So I would have then kind of been like kind of early in college when he first started. And he kind of tried to get me into it at the time, but I was busy with other stuff. I played some college basketball and I was busy with, university and doing that other stuff. So I would go out with him, probably 2-3 times a year kind of a thing, but it never really grabbed me. Most of those rounds were at Jubilee. We grew up out in Spruce Grove. And so people who have played Jubilee, fantastic starter course, but know it's maybe not the most arresting of starts for a disc golfer. I didn't really get it the first few times, which I know is different than a lot of people's origin story. Yeah. And then over college, I started playing a lot of ultimate. I stopped playing college basketball, and so I got in with some friends playing some ultimate over the summers. And then one time when we were out on a family camping trip in Banff area, Gabe really wanted to play Nordic Center. And I kind of thought, you know what, sure, it'll be at the very least, it'll be a nice hike, right? Like, I wasn't going to sit at the campsite while he went and walked around the Nordic Center. So I went out with Gabe and then my dad, who by this point had already been playing for a couple of years as well. So it kind of turned into a family thing except for me. So they brought me out and they gave me 3 discs. I don't remember what 2 of them were, but I remember one of them was a DX Valkyrie, a purple DX Valkyrie. Gotcha. And I don't know if it was just my brother being frustrated with always trying to teach me and never getting it or what, but he just told me, just like, throw this like you throw your ultimate disc.
Okay.
This like DX Valkyrie. He's like, I'm not going to try to give you any more tips anymore. Just go throw it. And so I threw it a few times. I was like, oh man, when I just stopped trying to mess around with this and I just kind of threw it like I threw my ultimate disc, and especially throwing forehand, that round he told me, you know what, you're better throwing the Ultra Star forehand, so just don't even try to like make this work backhand, just like only throw it forehand this round. So I did that. I was throwing this DX purple Valkyrie forehand, and it was I was just at Nordic Center this summer. Which hole was it? I think it's hole 4. It is the one that is super, super uphill. It's par 3. It's like 350 feet, but it's so uphill it doesn't even really feel reachable. Okay. It's got like a road winding
just up
down
on the road.
Up it. Yeah, and then like the basket is up higher than the road even. I threw forehand on that, and I got what I now know as like a perfect little hyzer flip out of the hand, dead straight, right down the fairway, and it hit dead center. I was like, this is actually kind of cool. Look at this. And so I played the rest of that round with this DX Valkyrie and 2 other discs. I don't even remember what the other 2 were. I'm sure one of them was a putter, but can't remember. Other discs that my dad and brother had lying around. And then I did a similar thing on the tunnel shot that round. I think it's hole 12, 13, kind of like around the turn, but on the back 9 there, where again, I threw what I now know as a hyzer flip right down the middle. And I had like the best shot of the group of us on this like tight tunnel shot. The 2 players have been playing for a while. Like, man, I think I get it now. Like and so then on the way out of there, Nordic Center has like a tiny little, like, not pro shop because it has a bunch of stuff for like bikes and cross-country skis and stuff, but they have a small little like disc section in there, tiny little store in the parking lot. In the summer, you'll see like a whole bunch of bike racks and stuff outside of it, but I think they rent downhill bikes for the area as well. So I went in there and I bought a Prodigy starter set. One of those discs is still in my bag. It's it's a baseline Prodigy M3. That's now like my flippiest mid ever. But that one's still in the bag. And then I wanted a driver as well because I was throwing this Archangel so well. And so I wanted one of those. And Gabe, I still give him crap for this. He picked out off the shelf a Discraft Flick. For me as my starter disc. Daryl's laughing because he probably knows what a Discraft Flick is. It's not a starter disc. No. It is, I think it's a 14 speed.
Wow.
If not, it's like a 12 or a 13. Like, it's a high speed driver, and to this day, it's the most stable disc I've ever thrown. It was like Discraft's version of like a tilt-esque disc where no matter how much angle you put it on, it's dying after 150 feet. So I bought that there, and then we came back to Edmonton after that like camping weekend. And at the time, I was on one of my summer breaks in university, and so I didn't really have a lot to do because it was during the summer, and so I like played every day for 8 weeks straight, and kind of went from there. That was summer 2019. So that was, almost 5 years ago now.
Wow.
I just want to ask you 2 questions. Well, 2 points. You say about that, you tried disc golf and it never really grabbed you. And then all of a sudden it was that one time that you tried it. You'd be surprised at how many stories that we've heard, Jeremy, where people say they go out and they're not they're nonplussed by it. They can take it or leave it, and then all of a sudden there's that one round where they kind of get it. They're like, okay, I'm actually kind of good at this, which is, it seems like it's quite a common thing. People just don't go out, pick up a disc, throw it, and be like, this is my sport. It takes them a couple times to try it and really get what it's all about. And the second thing I wanted to ask was, do you still have that purple Valkyrie, or is it still around anywhere? No.
No, I mean, it wasn't even mine. I think it was either my brother's or my dad. I don't honestly know. And so I gave it back to them at the end of the rounds. And I mean, it's a DX disc 5 years ago. I'm sure that thing is now either shattered or unusably flippy.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and as you say too, is that it sounded like when you threw that perfect hyzer flip, like that's the one thing that I think every disc golfer can agree on, is when that perfect flight or a great flight, whether it's the nice S flight, whatever one it is, when you see that, that's when you're hooked. Like after that, all you want to do is replicate that. But for me, it's like 99 throws and then one throw is that, but that's enough to keep me going.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Because, I probably played, probably pushing 20 rounds of disc golf before that round at Nordic Center. And it never really got me. I was terrible at it at the start. I was trying to throw backhands. And of course, we've all been there throwing a backhand for the first time. It's nose up and it goes 100 feet. And you're like, I could throw a baseball further than that. Like, why am I here? I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the right round. It was the right time. And here I am 5 years later.
That's great.
Yeah.
And now 5 years later, you're an MPO player. You're competing at the MPO level. And I actually had some questions here that I want to hone in on, because one of the times before I ever came to see you as a patient, I saw you at the Edmonton Open, and that was just this past summer. And the thing about that Edmonton Open tournament was it had a fairly big MPO field where we had Casey Hannemeyer, Max Rajitnik, Noah Higgins, Ben Loganes, all of these people were there, and you were competing in that level, or at that level. Now, the one thing that was a lot more unique about your rounds there was something happened on the very first round of that tournament. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that was it was a shotgun start. So I ended up starting on hole 2. The tournament there, I was treating at the time. I was running a physio booth, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But I requested Calvin, the TD, put me close to the start, so I didn't need to run all the way out. So I started on hole 2. Round was going all right, kind of some ups and downs. I don't remember off the top of my head what I was shooting, but it was kind of good enough to stay in the mix, but not good enough to be like pushing for lead card or anything. Hole 18, I had a pretty good drive, and then I actually, for those of you who know Bailey's Crossing, super tight green there with hazard all around. I gave myself a 25-foot putt for a birdie. I hit front cage and it dropped down, and then it trickled into the hazard, and I got a bogey on it. So I was super frustrated. I was going into the last hole of my round, which is hole 1. And I was back of the box because I just bogeyed that. And then I stepped up and I aced it. And I was like, oh, I guess that's the course saying, like, you're welcome for the bogey that it just gave me last hole. It just evens them both out. I don't know. Either way, I'll take it.
Yeah. And that's amazing, Tristan. And to us, like towards the end of the season there, Darryl and I went out to Bailey's a number of times. And, at that tournament, we had a great crowd watching us both on holes 18 and hole 1, mainly 18, but they were still there for hole 1. And I'm sure they had heard that one drop. But that hole is not an easy hole. You're going uphill, almost like what you were talking about at Canmore. Maybe not that steep, but it's still going uphill. And you got this big bush in the way. And then did you just kind of come around that bush? Was it like a backhand hyzer in, or what did you do?
Yeah, I just throw a big backhand hyzer at that hole. I go up to a distance driver on that hole. I know there's a lot of guys in the pro field that throw something a little bit slower than that, like a fairway driver on a big hyzer, but I just play it safe and play a big distance driver. So I was telling actually before, because in practice I was playing with someone, I don't remember who, and I threw a really good shot and it looked like it might go in. But I kind of blew him off. I was like, if you're throwing a big spike hyzer, or if you throw a good shot and it lands anywhere in circle 1, it kind of looks like it's going to go in at some point. And so I actually, like, I threw the disc and I was like, yeah, that's a good shot. It'll give me like a 15-footer. Like, yeah, that's great. Great way to finish off my round. And I had almost kind of like turned away. So I was like, yeah, I kind of, and then it hit the chains instead of hitting the ground 10 feet beside the basket. So
nice. Now, is that go ahead there, Darryl.
I think I was just going to ask the same question that you were going to ask. Is that how many aces have you had? Is that the only one, or have you had a few? Have you been lucky enough to have a few?
So I have, well, speaking of earlier, I was saying I play a lot of my rounds solo. So I have 3 solo aces, but I don't know if any of those count. They were all on first shots of rounds that I was scoring, but it doesn't quite have the same oomph to it. Right. And then I got that one in the tournaments, and then I have 4 other ones. Wow. So that's 7 in total then, doing some quick math.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when you put that one down at the tournament, what was your reaction? Did you run up that hill and did they make you run it down, or did you choose to run it down?
No, well, I was back to the box, and so everyone else had already thrown, right? I just bogeyed it, and that was our last hole of the round, and it was a hole 1. So I just kind of like walked up with the rest of my group and grabbed my disc, and I was like, well, I guess the round's over now. No, I didn't run it in or anything like that.
Oh, I was going to say, you could have just said, okay, guys, can you just bring my disc back for me once you're done?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's great. And then the other thing I noticed about that tournament was your second round of the tournament, you actually shot a 996 rated round. So that's what, and I don't know if you knew that, but that's what it came out as. And
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's what they rated it when I was checking. And I was wondering, is that your closest to 1,000, or have you ever shot a 1,000 rated round in a tournament?
No, that would be then my 4th best round at 996. I've had a couple rounds up above that. Before the year before, River City Cup of 2022, not this past year, the year before, 2022. I had a 1045 rated round.
Okay.
Wow.
And where was that at?
That was at Rundle. Yeah, that was the one round at Rundle. Yeah, that was my first ever tournament playing MPO.
Wow.
I up until that point, my first year playing, I played MA2, eventually won a tournament, and so I moved up to MA1. I got 3rd in a tournament, so the next year I stayed in MA1. I won River City Cup in MA1, and then 2 years ago I was on the fence. Do I stay in MA1? Do I go to pro? I don't really know if I can compete in pro. I eventually decided that I would rather play with players better than me, and so I pushed myself up to pro at the last minute in River City Cup, and I ended up getting it 2nd. So,
wow. Good job.
Yeah, so I guess it's good that I moved up to pro. Otherwise, I would not have liked to shoot in that nice of a round and being down in MA1.
I guess that does hold true that you always play the people that, you raise your own game to play with the people that you're playing against, right? So going up to MPO definitely improved your game.
Yeah, it was just perfect weekend. I think I ended up shooting, my first round was not great. I think it was around even at Hermitage, which ended up coming in like the 930s-ish. And then I shot a 1045, and then I shot a 1010, I think, to finish in 2nd. Somewhere around there.
Yeah, you feel when you play that well, you should be really challenging first at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be honest, a little bit of that rating is inflated with, it's tough for us here in Canada to shoot really darn high rated rounds just due to how the rating system works, because we don't have many 1,000 rated players in Canada. It might actually just be Casey. I think Noah maybe has just got over 1,000 rated, but we don't have many. We have a handful maybe, right? Like maybe one at a tournament, maybe 2. And so in order to shoot a 1,000 rated round, we have all of these guys in Edmonton and Calgary who are somewhere around kind of the 940 to 970 range. So then you got to beat the whole field by 4 strokes to shoot 1,000 rated, right? Like you got to do something real special. So I was lucky enough that tournament that Casey was there and Noah was there. And I think there was one other guy there who was really high, and they had all off weekends. And so I ended up beating them by 4 or 5 strokes. And so if you beat someone who's, I think Casey's 1020-ish, something like that, if you beat them by a few strokes, then your rating's going to get bumped up.
Yeah.
Definitely. And what was it like? Have you been on a card with anybody like Casey who's actually played at that pro level in the US? Have you what's the highest kind of player you played with?
Not with Casey, no. I haven't had a chance. That River City Cup where I played really well, like I said, he wasn't having a great tournament, so I think he was the card behind me in that tournament. I played with Noah a handful of times. Great player. And then, I've played with a number of guys kind of around the Edmonton area who are in that upper 900s. Mike Heckbert up from Grand Prairie, had the privilege of playing with him a few times. Great player. I think he's kind of just below 1,000 these days. It's very cool kind of watching kind of how some of those guys attack lines that I just do not even think about, especially someone like Noah, who doesn't really have a super well developed forehand game, which is very different than me. I'm pretty 50-50. And so there's a lot of shots that he throws, just like buttery turnovers with mids and putters that I would just not even have imagined until he lines it up.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about this before, Jeremy, but at the Edmonton Open at Bailey's Crossing there, for people who don't know, hole 16, I was actually spotting during the tournament on hole 16. It's a par 4 dogleg left. From the MPO tee pad, most people were just trying to go straight down the fairway, hyzer it way over the trees on the right and land kind of at the corner. Last round, Noah was just like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And he just threw it towards the basket and was putting for eagle. Like, it was just so far down that fairway. It was the furthest drive I saw all weekend. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember at that tournament, at the first round, I was playing with Connell, a young kid out of Calgary, I think.
Yeah.
Just a ridiculous arm on the kid. And at Hermitage, I'm so bad at hole numbers. It's the like 460-foot hole with the road right in front of it that plays like a river out of bounds.
Hole 8.
Hole 8, yeah. He was first on the tee, and he stepped up and he put it on the pin, like tap in range. So it was a 465-foot shot, and it just looked so easy. And I think I was third, and I remember stepping up, being like, why am I here? Like, what is going on? That's
got to be amazing.
I can throw decently far, but I mean, to just silky smooth park a 450-foot shot is, without looking like you're trying that hard, is not something in my game.
Yeah. When he's saying to himself, Darryl, when he's saying, I better watch out for the river, and you're going, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I was going to say, that it's one thing to throw it that far, but to have the accuracy to park it on that, because it's a small green as well, protected by trees and bushes, and like you say, that river in front, but to be able to throw it that far and land it right where you're aiming.
Yeah, and I think he was 14, because that was 2 years ago. I think he was 14 at the time. He's a young kid. Yeah, he's coming.
Wow. Yeah. I know we follow him, and he comments on a few of our videos and things like that. So yeah, maybe we'll have to try and get him on sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this year, Tristan, do you have any tournaments in mind that you're kind of lining up now that we're getting closer to the start of tournament season?
Yeah, I was just looking at disc golf scene last week, just kind of like checking out when the dates of all the tournaments are this year. Mm-hmm. I don't really know which ones I'm going to make it out to yet. For sure, the ones in the Edmonton area, like I'm going to for sure try to play River City and Edmonton Open. And then I'll try to get to like a handful of ones kind of in the Edmonton region, like maybe out to Drayton Valley or maybe up to Athabasca. But out further than that, it's a little bit tough for me. I got a little guy at home, so it's not just me to think about of how many weekends can I commit to throwing plastic around in trees, right?
Yeah, that's the tough thing.
And especially when they're young, when they get to the age of Darryl and my kids, we're lucky if they want to spend an hour playing a board game with us or something like that. So we get a little extra time. So take it while you can.
Yeah. So we'll see. I usually try to play somewhere around like 5-ish, give or take, tournaments a year. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening this year.
We tend to get kicked out of the house, Jeremy, rather than making a decision whether we have to stay or not.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
If we're in the house, we're taking up bandwidth on the internet, so we might as well get out.
There you go.
Way.
Yeah. So speaking of those courses that you've played and those tournaments that you've played, or you want to play this year, do you have a favorite course that you've played, or one that you look forward to playing?
favorite course I've ever played is probably actually a course down in the States. I did a road trip with my dad and my brother, who both still play, 2 years ago now, and we headed down kind of through Montana and the little bit of Idaho, and then kind of through Spokane and back up. So we got to play a course called Caliber, which is in Sandpoint.
Okay.
And it is fantastic. It's like pro tour level type course. It's amazing. It totally ate me alive. There's a high level A tier there. I know year in and year out. I've seen some of the kind of the high level Canadian guys dip down to it because it's only a few hours drive over the border. Yeah, that's got to be top of the list of courses I've ever played.
Nice. Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, now we got to know you a little bit there, Tristan. So I want to kind of roll into some Pursuit of Motion type questions and kind of take us in that direction. So you're sitting right there now at Pursuit of Motion. Yeah, there you go. The hand is showing us off for us. And it's a physiotherapy clinic. What I did is, again, we do our research. So we know that you have a master's in physiotherapy. So I don't know if we should be calling you Master Piska. Is that
you could if you want to? It's not mandatory, but
and then also a degree in kinesiology.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing physiotherapy? Because I know that would be a fair amount of schooling just to get started.
Yeah, it's too much school. It's bachelor and then a master's, so it ends up being like 6.5 years ish if you kind of push and do it all right in a row. So I've now been working for a handful of years. This will be 4, 5, somewhere around that range.
Okay. And you still loving every minute of it?
Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, I love what I do. It's worth the ride to get here, and it especially when I can try to link it into some business and pleasure at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you've been doing it from schooling, so around about 10 years, all told?
If you want to throw right from the start of school into the mix, then yeah, something like that.
So what first attracted you to physiotherapy? What made you decide that's the path that you wanted to go down?
Yeah, it's a similar story to a whole lot of physios. If you ask any of us, we're all kind of ex-athletes who have been broken ourselves enough that we spent time in physio clinic getting fixed up. And I don't know if we got Stockholm syndrome into it or what, but you hang around enough and you're like, man, this might be a cool place to eventually get a job. So I played fairly high level basketball growing up, and then into a little bit of college as well. And so I got my fair share of battle scars in the knees and ankles and such. And so I spent a good portion of my youth in physio clinics getting rehab. Just absolutely loved kind of what it would let me be able to keep doing. I keep playing the sport that I loved, and had some really good relationship with some of my physios growing up that kind of helped me get there. And then eventually I ended up kind of dipping my toe in the water with like some sports medicine stuff in high school, and kind of learning some of the like how to do like be a team trainer, and how to do like some taping and strapping and some basic anatomy and all that type of stuff. And I just absolutely loved it. And so then went down the road of going into a bachelor's degree of kinesiology with the hope of getting into the master's program without really a plan B. Maybe not the route I would recommend. I still don't really know to this day what I would have done if I didn't end up getting into the physio program, but I did, so I didn't need to figure that out.
Awesome.
There you go. Everything worked out for you in the end. So
yeah,
life had a path.
Well, the one thing you know about us, Tristan, or if you don't, our listeners definitely do, is that we're both pushing 40, probably starting to see 50 in our in the driver's windshield there. It's coming up upon us. So we're not unfamiliar to physio at all. I used to be a marathon runner back in the day, and that's definitely a recipe to see a physiotherapist if there ever was one. But for some of the listeners, some of the younger people who haven't been there, I don't know if they've all been to physiotherapy. So what I kind of wanted to talk about was, when should a person be thinking of seeing a physiotherapist? When should a person be thinking of seeing a doctor? When should a person just be going, oh, that's just a tweak, it'll probably go away, and not come in at all, so that they can actually address a problem before it becomes a big problem?
Yeah, sure. Super common question. We have the privilege here as physios in Canada to be first line treatment. So what that means is we don't necessarily need you to see a doctor before you come in to see us. If it is something like a joint injury or a muscle injury, you can come right on into to a physio right off the street. You don't need a prescription or anything like that. And to be honest with you, most of doctors, if you go in with something like a muscle pull or a strain or something like that, they're just going to end up sending you over our way anyways. So it might be beneficial for your time to just skip over that step and come see us. For when someone should come in to see a physio, there's a whole wide range of stuff that we can help with. Anything from the most common thing is injuries, right? So if there's pain that is stopping you from either living your life or playing disc golf or doing anything else you'd like to do, if there's pain that's stopping you, or if you just want to try to address like a particular deficit you may have. So maybe it's like flexibility or mobility or a strength, something that you think, again, maybe in disc golf, you think it's holding back how much of a reach back you have because your back feels really stiff and tight and you just can't quite get there, then that can all be something that we can check out and hopefully get you set up with a plan to push forward on.
Good. Cool. Now with that too, when somebody comes in, because I know for myself, I've seen physio. I've done a lot of physio. I still do physio. I see you actually right now. I also have done chiropractor in the past, and I know, for example, with chiropractor, a lot of people are scared of what's going to happen when they get there. Maybe they have that same kind of opinion of physio. Maybe they don't because they just don't have the knowledge based on it. So when someone comes in for the first time, what are they going to expect in that initial appointment? And that you're not just putting them on a rack and stretching them out or something like that.
Yeah, sure. So I can speak most pointedly to kind of what it would look like here at Pursuit. Physio, it is a regulated field, so there's going to be some really big similarities across any clinic you may go to, but there may be some small differences here and there, mostly around like maybe how much time you might get with the physio or what else they may do with you. Here at Pursuit, we do like a one-on-one only type of a model. So if you would come in to see me, then you only get me. Or if we do have any sort of like students or physios in training, they'll be along with me, but you only get me. I'm not abandoning you on your own. That first time you're coming in is our assessment appointment. So we're going to spend a few minutes, 10 or so minutes, kind of chatting about what's going on, where is your pain, kind of what is the story of your pain, how is it affecting you, what are you hoping to get back to, kind of trying to set some goals together. And then we do an exam. So we'll get you to do a whole bunch of movements. We'll do some tests. We'll test out a bunch of different muscles and joints and really try to kind of do some detective work to track down exactly why this issue is bugging you, to see if it is. Yeah, if it's a strength issue, is it a flexibility issue? Is it more of like a control or like a pattern of movement that we got to work on? And then once we kind of got that exam done, we got that the story all sorted, then we can set you up with a treatment plan of kind of what we can actually do going forward. And that's often a collaboration between myself and the patient in front of me of like, are you already going to the gym? Do you already have a plan? Do you already have some stretches? Can I add in some things? Can I try to tweak some stuff? Can I kind of maybe put a little bit of a spin on some things that you already like to do? To try to get you back to what you want to do. So treatment wise, then it looks again, I speak mostly here at Pursuit, but we believe that kind of exercise is always top of the list. So we get you doing some stuff. That's why I got all these heavy circles behind me, all these plates and dumbbells and everything like that. Really trying to get you moving, because we think that exercise is the best medicine to try to get you back to what you love doing. And then there may be some stuff I can do, kind of some hands-on treatment, maybe some like soft tissue release or some joint stretches, or we have some advanced training here as well, and like some dry needling and some acupuncture type techniques and that type of stuff, if that might be beneficial for you. But it's all very patient to patient. So we always make the plan kind of for the person in front of us. It's not just a cookie cutter approach where I pull a paper off of our shelf of papers and give you the same thing I've been seeing for everyone else.
One of the points that I was going to make there is that, I'm kind of like Jeremy. We're getting at that certain age where trips to the physio happen more and more regularly and things like that. And I've been to a few physios where, unfortunately, I'm sure it's a story that quite a lot of people hear as well, is that you go in through the door, they sit you down, they rub you a little bit, they tell you to go do your exercises, they come back, put heat on you, put the machine on, and then you're out the door. And it's the same thing day in, day out. Every visit is the same thing, and it kind of gets repetitive, and you're wondering if it's ever going to do any benefit. I have been to physios where, you know, every visit has been something different. It's been, like you said, a movement, a joint thing. It's been dry needling. There's been exercise. There's been stretches. There's been lots of different things that keep it mixed up every visit. Is that, you know, I'm not saying that the people that just do the working, the exercise, and the machine are bad at their job. You know, maybe there's a benefit to that repetition of that sort of thing. But where do you put mixing it up every visit to try and you know, hit different things that could be causing you the pain?
Yeah. So like I said, we try to take like a patient-centered approach here. So patient first and foremost, and because it's patient-centered, right? Like each patient or each person in the world is different, right?
Yeah.
Like even if both of you guys both had a shoulder problem, your shoulders are different. You use your shoulders different in day-to-day life. Yeah, you play the same sport. You probably throw with the same hand, but that doesn't mean that the treatment plan is going to be the same, because the end goal that we're working towards, the road is not going to be the same to get there. So that more generalized approach where kind of everyone with a shoulder gets the same thing and then they get out the door again. I'm not a huge fan of that approach. I don't think it's our best practice. I don't think it's the best shot that we have of getting you better and getting you better for the long run. Mm-hmm. I used to work at a clinic like that before coming over here to Pursuit, and it didn't really jive with me. So I parted ways with them and came on over, and we work much more individually, and maybe that is different stuff every session. It doesn't have to be. There is still some value in repetition. Anyone who's worked out knows that you can't do squats one time and all of a sudden have huge tree trunks of thighs. Like, you got to have some repetition of day over day, week over week. But that certainly doesn't mean that everyone who walks through the door gets the exact same repetition.
Right. Awesome.
Well, and I think, Tristan, at least from my experience, and I know a lot of people, they like to think that they're tough and they're like, yeah, this is fine. It'll go away. I'm okay. I'm fine. I think the one thing I've learned, and maybe if there's more to speak to it, go ahead, but it's when you think you've got an injury, when you think you've got a problem, if you can get out and go to physio early, the amount of downtime you're going to have, or maybe the stoppage of actually doing the activities you want to do, is limited, as opposed to if you go, oh, I can't even lift my arm now. Let's see if we can go fix it. Like, what that approach is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like the sooner you get something fixed, the less secondary problems and the less it sunk its claws into you, right? So the quicker you nip it in the bud, the vast majority of time, that recovery time is going to be a whole heck of a lot quicker, which is better, right? We don't want to miss 3 weeks on the course. We want to miss maybe 0.
Yeah, there you go. I always used to think that I had a high, you know, maybe it's that masculinity. I don't think it is, because I'm not that type of guy. But I used to think,
man's man, Darryl.
I always used to say, you know what, I've got a high tolerance for pain. I've got a high pain threshold. I think now, the more I think about it, the more I get up in age. Is just I was stubborn. I just didn't want to go and get it fixed, and I figured I could work through it or whatever. It's okay, I can live with it. But it's not. It's just that you're stubborn. You don't want to get it fixed. Maybe you don't want to admit to yourself that you're in pain, or you need help, or you need some treatment. So yeah, definitely, if you're in pain, go get it fixed.
Yeah, don't Dr. Google it. That's not the solution. No, that's fair enough. And the other thing too, at least from my experience before we move on again, I just wanted to say too, is that if you've got a health plan with your work, or with your spouse, or with your parents, or whoever it is, there's usually enough in most programs, at least that I've been part of, to cover at least 6 treatments, if not. And then if there's 2 plans, like my plan and then my wife's, once mine's done, I move to hers, and then I get another 6 treatments as well. So it's nothing out of my pocket, or if anything, it's maybe 20% of it I'm having to pay. It's not a lot. So
yeah, use your benefits if you got them. That's what we always tell people, right? Like, December is always our busiest time of year, because that's when everyone realizes, oh shoot, I got 6 physio visits left on my benefits, and there's only 4 weeks left in the year. I got to use these up. So yeah, I'm always crazy slammed in December period there. But yeah, use them while you have them, right? It's part of your paycheck from your job, right? You wouldn't let part of your paycheck go to waste, so don't let that go to waste either.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, if people do end up wanting to come visit you, because Pursuit of Motion's got a couple locations, I believe, but you're at the north location?
Yeah, we got 2 locations. Our north location, we're here in Edmonton. We're right on the northwest side, kind of right off where St. Albert Trail hits the Henday, right over by, if you know where the SPCA is, the animal shelter. We're next door neighbors with them, so you can dip on over and maybe check out some animals to adopt on your way out of here. And then we also have a second location, kind of like south central. That one's called Pursuit of Performance. I'm not at that location. I'm full-time here at the north side location, but we got some fantastic therapists down at that south side location as well.
That was going to be one of my follow-up questions, whether you actually did any work down there on the south side location, because obviously I'm from Beaumont, so I was, if ever
He's
I
talking about the south side again. Go ahead, Darryl.
I just don't want to bring it up anymore now, Jeremy. No, I was just wondering if you did do like a split location or anything like that, if there was any chance of, for any of our south side listeners that may want to come and see you if they are here, if they do have any problems.
Not currently. Currently, I'm full-time up here at the north side. I live not too far away from the north side clinic, so the clinic owner, my boss, has brought up a few times of getting me to pick up some shifts down at the south side, and I've kind of told him it would need to be worth my effort to drive 40 minutes to work instead of 8.
Do you know what, Jeremy? I'm going to book the next guest, and I'm going to book somebody on the south side. Every guest we have is all north side.
Well, I need the extra support so that we can gang up on you, Darryl.
Maybe Kristen's right. I don't know.
We all know that all the best Edmonton disc golfers are on the north side of the city. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I'll take that by association. I don't know if I can truly own that statement, but because I'm up here, I'll do it by association.
Hey, you've seen my game, Jeremy. No, that's true.
Yeah, there you go. Tristan, as well, too, because I've been in disc golf for a bit here and I've experienced a couple injuries, the one that we're kind of working on right now, could you maybe go over what some of the common disc golf injuries are and what people should be watching for when they feel some pain and whether it is something they should be getting looked at or not?
Yeah, sure. So as with all throwing sports, right? Like we can go to baseball as the big one, right? Like we're typically talking injuries to your arm or shoulder area. That's the ones that end up kind of being the victim, especially if you are kind of sharply increasing how much you're doing, or if you're trying to make big form changes or that type of a thing. Some better form coaches than me will tell you that oftentimes the arm comes into play a lot more than it maybe should. So shoulder muscle injuries, like rotator cuff injuries, are a really big one in disc golf. Coming down the line, right? We can have some big elbow injuries, especially the outside of the elbow. Can be a really darn big one. And then the other thing that I've seen some of as well is some back injuries. We know that it takes a lot of rotation to get through both a good backhand form and a good forehand form, right? We got to do a whole heck of a lot of rotating through there. And so if you're doing that maybe a little bit more than your back is ready for, then that can cause some pain. And last one is injuries to do with planting, right? So that if you really slow down anyone's form, especially those powerful throwers and those pros, the amount of force they're putting down into that plant foot, that lead foot, and it's coming up through the knee and through the hip is a lot, right? You come all the way through your X step, all the way through your run up, and then you're stopping on that foot, and just everything is coming up the chain. So some common victims. In general, though, we don't tend to see a whole heck of a lot of like acute injuries in disc golf. It's a non-contact sport, right? So if you're getting tackled playing disc golf and someone blows your knee out, I think something's going wrong somewhere. So as opposed to maybe some other sports where we see a lot of like acute injuries, where like someone falls into you, or you sprain something, or you pull a muscle due to a movement, it's going to be more commonly, it's going to be your like chronic or your overuse injuries that slowly build over time and are kind of bugging you maybe a little bit one day and a little bit more the next week, and then a little bit more until eventually they start to feel it too much to get out to the course. Yeah. As for when someone should come in to see a physio, I think that was the second part of your question there.
Yeah.
Really, my rule of thumb is if it's getting worse and worse and worse, and you can't get a handle on it, especially outside of kind of the timeline that you're typically thinking of. We've all been in the place where we've maybe pulled a muscle and it's sore for 2 or 3 or 4 days, but then you kind of get back on the train again. Those are certainly not ones that you need to go and seek medical attention for. So if it's getting worse and worse and kind of outside that normal timeline of kind of 2, 3, 4 days, or if it's starting to actually impact what you want to do, right? So maybe that's life, maybe that's work, maybe that's disc golf, right? If it's getting to the point where you're like, man, I can't play my 2 rounds on Saturday because my knee hurts so much. That's when you want to go and get some help to get you back on the right track.
Where do you stand on when you have an injury? Maybe it's not a full-blown injury where you can barely walk or barely move, sort of thing, but you have an injury, and you often hear the term, play through the injury, maybe taking painkillers and things like that. I've never been a big fan of taking painkillers because I feel like the problem is always there. It's just that you don't feel it, right? So yeah, and then playing through the injury as well. I mean, obviously, it's going to be person by person. You're going to know what the pain is yourself. No one else can tell you how much to play through. But is there, can you play through an injury, or is it always best to, if you feel that niggle or if you feel that twinge, is it better just to take an extra day and try and subside?
Yeah. So, I mean, we certainly could play through injuries. The question isn't like, can we do it? The question is maybe, should we do it? Right.
Right.
And a good portion of that kind of comes down to like your pros, cons. I would be lying if I said that I never played through injuries, even this past summer, right? There's a couple tournaments I really wanted to play. And even though I knew I had something kind of lingering, I still really wanted to play that tournament. And so, I maybe did not follow my own advice, which we as physios are notorious for. And so I knew at the time, you know what, my elbow is hurting, but I really want to finish this tournament. I know I'm going to need to take a couple weeks off after this tournament, but it's worth it for me to maybe extend my timeline to play this thing right now. But in general, if you do feel some of those things that are going on and not getting better and maybe just getting worse and worse and worse, typically playing through it is not necessarily going to help your healing process.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned just a little bit back there, you said it's not those acute injuries. And I think that's probably why we're seeing a good push from a lot of ex-ultimate players or now part-time occasional ultimate players moving to disc golf, probably exactly for that reason. They still get to throw a disc, but they're not worried about someone taking out their knees by accident while they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the ones too that I wanted to say as well is I kind of want to put out there because you made it make a lot of sense. So for people who've been listening, I've got a bit of a tennis elbow type injury that Tristan and I have been working on. And one of the things that made sense when Tristan explained it was he said, Jeremy, your elbow has probably been fine for all the activities that you're doing. So your elbow's at one level, your effort that you're putting at it is lower. And then I went into disc golf, and like some of us went into disc golf hard. And last year I competed in over 8 tournaments, and I was playing 2 rounds on a day on the weekend and that kind of thing. And what I ended up doing was putting that level of exertion and effort onto my elbow at a higher point. And as a result, my elbow couldn't keep up to that level. So now as we go and we do the treatments that we're doing, what we're trying to do is bring my elbow up to the level to be able to handle that force that I'm putting on it. And that just really sunk and made sense to me. So I'm glad that you said that, because the other thing about it to keep in mind is depending on whether you're dealing with a muscle or whether you're dealing with a tendon or what it is, there is different time frames on that timeline of when it's going to heal. And that tendon's just going to take time. So I know every time I see you, we're just moving it another notch up towards there so that by the time hopefully we get into full season, my elbow doesn't even care. It can handle everything I'm throwing at it.
You did a great job explaining that. I should get you in here to follow me around, and you can tell all my patients that and save my voice a little bit. Yeah. Oftentimes those overuse injuries really come from we're asking the body to do more than it's ready for, right? So maybe our body is ready for 100 throws a day, right? Making up a random number here, but the season hits, the snow melts, we're going to go play 3 rounds this Saturday, and we're going to throw 2 shots off every tee, and all of a sudden we're now asking to throw 200 shots. I don't know if the math tracks on that. Someone else can do the math there. But yeah, we're just doing way more than the body is ready for. It doesn't mean that the task we were doing, doesn't mean that throwing is bad for us. It just means that the amount that we were doing was over our capacity. We just weren't able to handle it. And so we kind of got 2 options, right? And I mean, Jeremy went through this as well, right? Option 1 is we just do less, right? If our body's ready for 100 throws, we only do 100 throws. that's not a very fun option, right? I like playing 3 rounds on a Saturday, right? If our capacity is so low, we can only play 9 holes, and that's not an option either, right? Like, we don't want to just sit there and just say, okay, that's my limit for the rest of my life. Instead, we can go option B, and that's to change what the body can do, right? And we know the body is super, super adaptable, right? Look at how many people we see that go from not working out at all to working out a bunch, and their body changes so much you can hardly recognize them, right? That's why we're still alive as a species, is because our body can just adapt and change to the demands we put on it. So that's our other option is, hey, I want to throw 200 throws a day and have my elbow feel fine. Okay, then let's bump that ability of the body up and above, so that when we go out and ask it to throw 200 times, it laughs at us and says, hey, I can throw 300. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, and with that, people, be patient, because it can take time, but it will happen. You just have to believe in the process. That's one of those other things I can tell you from all of my years of physio is, don't think you're going to go and you're going to go once and everything's going to be good. You got to work at it. And when you get the exercises, whether they come in a sheet of paper, whether they come in an email, however they are, you're supposed to do them. They're not for you to look at and to mentally go through them. You actually have to do them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our body can adapt, our body can change, but anyone who has started up a new exercise program started going to the gym for the first time or tried to pick up long distance running, it's not an overnight process.
And there's always that period of, maybe it might be 3 or 4 days, might be a week, might be a month of you don't see any progress. It feels like nothing's happening, but it is happening. Like you said, you just have to be patient, and then all of a sudden you'll start to see those gains.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we're in the off season right now. We're all getting geared up, ready to get back to playing again. Is there anything that we can do in off season that you recommend that we can kind of get ready for the demands that the new disc golf season is going to put on our bodies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the perfect time to try to prep your body, right? As we're kind of starting to ramp up into the season. I'm a pretty fair weather golfer. I don't think I've been out and played a round since there was first snow on the ground there in December at some point. So I have not played, but and I probably won't play until the snow gets all the way out of here. But I know now that I got probably hopefully only 2 months, maybe 3 months before the snow really melts and gets out of here and tournaments start up again. So that's enough time the season changes, right? That's enough time for your body to adapt. So this is the perfect time to start to work some of those out. First thing is, if you had any sort of aches and pains last year, right? Think back to end of the season last year. You're really winding down. Maybe you're trying to grind out that one last tournament in September. And was there anything that was painful then, right? That might be a spot to start working on, whether it be a back or an elbow or a shoulder, or kind of what was kind of dragging you down. I got a couple patients right now from disc golfers. I've been able to treat a few EDGA members over the winter time, and that's what it is for a few of them. It was kind of what they were feeling at the end of last season, and they want to make sure when they get out to play again in 2 or 3 months, that the same thing isn't going to rear its head back up again, right? Maybe it's feeling good over the winter, but that's just because you haven't done anything with it.
Fair enough.
That's kind of the first thing, is if there is any sort of aches and pains, let's see if we can deal with those and figure out why that was bugging you. And if it's not, if there's none of those and you just kind of want to prepare in general for getting out there again, I'm a big fan of just a general strengthening program, right? A general workout program. And that doesn't need to be crazy, right? You don't need to be going and pumping iron in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. It could be something small, just trying to maybe do some weightlifting for some of your arms and shoulders and these areas that take a lot of the strain of disc golf. Just to, like I said, make some changes, make some adaptations so that you're ready to hit the ground running when the season really gets here.
I feel like you've got the perfect space to set up a training net so that you can just start slowly, just go through the motions, and then you'll be good to go.
Oh yeah. We got more than enough space over here for a net. Don't you worry. I've been pestering the boss a little bit. I keep telling him that as soon as I get a couple of more disc golfers in here, and I push over that threshold, then I'm just gonna take over half the gym and put in a net.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to encourage people to come and see you. I guess that's the wrong way to be. But if anybody is out there with an injury, I guess Tristan's the person to come and see.
Yeah, it's a funny job, right? Ideally, I am unemployed in a perfect world, right? I always tell my patients I'm trying my hardest to never see you again. I'm trying my hardest to work myself out of a job. And no matter how much I like you, when you walk out the door, I want you to stay out the door, right? But like that's not how it works as humans who like to move and use our bodies. Something's always going to give.
Yeah. So I don't know, Darryl, is it, we're not supposed to treat it the same way as our plea when we're talking and shouting out our socials and asking people to subscribe. We can't, we shouldn't be doing the same thing here for Tristan, but I would think, have you guys set a magic number of disc golf patients you need over there to get more of some disc golf related equipment in there?
There's not been a firm number, no, but I've got some thoughts. I mean, even like kind of talking back to like what we normally do during an assessment. Normally, what I would do with people is I want to see what makes the area hurt, right? So if it's a runner, then I get you on the treadmill and I get you running, so I can actually see like why is that thing hurting, but also like is there something going on with how you move that might be influencing it? So with a disc golfer, it'd be pretty darn fantastic if I could just, you say forehand hurts you. Okay, let's throw 3 or 4 or 5 forehands and let's slow it down. Instead, right now, typically what I get disc golfers to do is I get them to film themselves and either out at the course or at home and like throw a couple shots into a net or out there, and then we can break it down that way. So it's still really good info for me to have. I would love to see it with my own eyes, but second best for now until I can or take over half this gym for my full training setup with a video camera, maybe get a tech disc in here. It's in the future. It's coming.
You wouldn't be getting rid of patients that way. We'd be coming, I'm like, I think I'm a little hurt. Can I throw the tech disc a little bit?
Yeah.
I guess we're not saying, it's not like the socials. We're not giving a shout out to subscribe to go see Tristan, but like, if you do have an injury, go and see Tristan.
Yes.
That's what we're saying.
And I want to say to that is a point as well, is that all physio have taken their schooling, taking their training, and there is something to the experience in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with this, Tristan, is what they've experienced. So if a physio has seen a lot of runners, they're going to have a really good knowledge of plantar fasciitis and of tight calves and all the different things that you're going to get as a runner. But disc golf is a relatively niche sport still, as much as we all think it's the biggest thing in the world. That's anyone outside of the sport doesn't necessarily know it. They're like, is that frolf? Is that frisbee golf? What is that? So the fact that you are also a disc golfer, I think to me, that was a really big appeal, because you know the motion, you know the muscles, you know what that is. I don't have to try and explain it to somebody else, because you've already got all that knowledge, and being treating disc golfers, you've seen us before. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some people listening who have maybe gone to a physio and tried to explain to them, like, it hurts when I do a backhand, but what is a backhand? Okay, I move in this way and then I do this. And so, yeah, I certainly get a little bit of a head start in that range, or when you come in and say, okay, it hurts when I am at the back of my reach back in a backhand, then I can kind of combine the two realms of watching my own form and working on that and everything, and the physio side of things to hopefully jump to the solution a little bit quicker.
Yeah, perfect. Now another thing there, and actually, Darryl, I heard one of your breaths, and I know what those breaths mean. That means you had a question, so you fire away.
Oh, no. I was, just on the topic of, what can we do to prepare, in the off season, things like that. This kind of ties into what can we do with any time that we go out and play around. Stretching. Should we be stretching? Is it not just for us old guys that are, their muscles are a little bit tighter and we're starting to, not get that full range of motion sort of thing? Is it stretching is a good thing for everybody to do, I'm assuming?
So I knew you guys were going to ask this, so I made sure I tuned up on this, because I got my opinions on it. So I quizzed all of our other physios here. We got 4 physios here, and I did a little bit of a deep dive into some of the research journals as well to make sure I wasn't totally off base, because this may ruffle some feathers, but I don't think stretching's that important, to be honest with you.
Drop the mic, hot take.
No,
I've actually heard this before. Yeah, about just going in cold is sometimes better than actually stretching, because you're trying to stretch a cold muscle, right?
Yeah, so we've known for a long time. I say we. When I say we, I mean like the research community and kind of the worldwide network of physios and professors and such who publish papers and publish studies and then led conferences. And I've been lucky to go to a few of those, but then also just kind of reading all these research journals and such that people have put online that static stretching, so like your stretches where you hold for a long period of time, are not super beneficial prior to exercise. In fact, there's been some good evidence over the years that it actually reduces the amount of force your muscle can produce if you hold it in a lengthened position.
Interesting.
If you are in a sport where flexibility is really important, so like a gymnast or a dancer, then that's a different story, right? Because we know that stretching can improve your flexibility, but if that's not the case, then you're just looking to run the fastest, jump the highest, throw the furthest, that type of stuff, then we know that static stretching is not the route to go down. And so in general, we've kind of been moving more towards dynamic stretching, where you're kind of stretching while you move, right? So your arm circles and your leg kicks and that kind of a stuff, where you're moving the muscle as you stretch. And that's been shown some better results. But even then, I think that sometimes we get a little bit carried away in how intense we make our warm-up, when in reality, I think the best warm-up we can possibly do is just slowly doing something at a higher and higher intensity, right? So yeah, we could absolutely, if you're on tee number 1 and you're waiting for 10 or 15 minutes for the rest of your card to get there and you want to do some movement and some warm-up, I don't think that's a bad thing. But I also don't think you would be wrong starting on T1 and throwing some putters at 20% and then throwing some mid-ranges at 50% and then throwing some fairways at 80%, and then you're warmed up and ready to go. Because you're kind of doing the movement, you're working the muscles, and you're working them as focused on the task you want to do as you possibly can be. So I think the biggest thing is just kind of not going in cold, but also I will disagree with maybe some of our little league coaches and say that a full 10 to 15 minute stretching routine is maybe a little bit overblown in how effective and how required it is.
I can see Jeremy's brain is cannot compute this, because you're a big believer in stretching before every round and exactly those static stretches that Tristan was talking about there. So how do you feel about that, Jeremy?
Well, I think what I'd say, Darryl, is I do a combination of the two. I do put that arm across my chest and stretch it. Maybe I'll drop that one out. But a lot of the other stretches that I'm doing are a dynamic stretch for my back, or a dynamic stretch to be able to reach and just get a little bit of stretch there, because I have had some of those concerns where it is tight and then it pulls. So I could see the value there. Now, Tristan, what about after the round is over? Do you just jump in the car and drive home, or should you do anything to is it the same thought process there?
It's going to be similar. I don't think it's a bad thing to try to do something to kind of slowly bring you down. But that being said, unless you're playing a mountain course, disc golf is usually not a super physically intensive sport if we compare it to maybe some other like higher demand sports, like maybe your footballs and basketballs, where when you finish, your heart rate is just skyrocketing. It's as high as it can possibly be. Unless maybe you just got off a putt like for a win at a tournament. Hopefully your heart rate is not super high as you get off of hole 18.
Or maybe if you aced your last hole of the round, maybe your
right?
heart might be a bit elevated there. Yeah.
So just due to that kind of lower intensity that disc golf demands, I don't think it's required for you to do a long intensive cool down. Again, if you want to go for a little bit of a walk to kind of like bring your heart rate down just a little bit more, or that type of thing, I think that's fine. But I would not say it's required.
What do you think? I think probably what Jeremy, another point that Jeremy's trying to get at, maybe, or at least what I'm thinking, is that, after you've been stretching your muscles, you've been walking around, you've been throwing, and then to go and sit in a position with your knees bent, your legs are cramped, sort of thing. Is that a bad thing? Do you? I mean, I guess you can't really unstretch your muscles. I guess if they're stretched, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, if we take it to extremes, then we know that it can be harmful for you, right? So we see a lot of negative effects of stuff like marathon runners who then after a marathon jump into like a team bus and then drive for 4 or 5 hours. Right. But that's pretty far down the spectrum, right? Of like that high intensity, bringing your body to the limit, and then to sit in a cramped for hours at a time, then that's where we start to run into some issues, and we do know that is quite harmful for us. But if you're playing around at disc golf and then you jump in your car and you drive 20 minutes home and then you're standing up and you're moving when you get home. That 20 minutes isn't a long enough period to have any sort of significant effects.
Yeah, Darryl, it would be a pretty big deal if we were building up a bunch of lactic acid in our muscles disc golfing, I think.
Yeah. I'll throw the caveat in there too. I should have said this at the start, but a lot of this stuff that I was just talking about with warm-ups and with cool downs is for people who don't have a current injury going on. That was kind of like general population. If you do have a particular issue or a particular injury, like maybe you do have a back problem that you're dealing with right now, then absolutely like a targeted warm up towards your condition may be really beneficial for you. But what I was mentioning is the research around general warm ups for athletes. So they do a lot of studies around like warm ups that they just give like youth soccer programs across the country.
Right.
So they're not targeting it to people with injuries. They're just trying to get as many athletes as they can possibly get into the study, and then see if it has any effect. And those are the ones that are showing that it's maybe not as important as we have been prone to think before.
We just need to study on out of shape 40-year-olds.
It's right. It's a different study.
There you go.
Well, I don't know where we'd ever get out of shape 40-year-olds, Darryl. Not on this podcast, right?
No.
So the one thing we had mentioned too, Tristan, was that Pursuit of Motion sponsors events, and you've got the Tundra Toss coming up, and you guys are going to be the lead sponsor.
Yeah.
So last year we had you, this kind of just flows right through, is that you led some stretches at the beginning, some dynamic stretches. I will make that clear now. They were dynamic stretches before we got started. And, you had information and tables on site. What can we expect this year at Tundra Toss? A similar type of thing, or?
So it's going to be a little bit different at Tundra Toss for sure this year. I'll still be there. I'm going to be there kind of for because we got the fantastic combo that EDGA has set up of the Tundra Toss and also our like welcome day for members at the same time. So I'm kind of pulling double duty on both of those. So I'll be there for both of them. So I will be there, but I'm not going to be setting up a full like physio booth with my bed and all my treatment areas and such. I'll be there more so from the sponsor side of things. So I'll be there more so like with some like information about the clinic and some business cards and that type of stuff. If people have concerns, I'm happy to help them out, but I'm doing a little bit of a mode shift here for this year. So I'll be there. Hopefully I'm not needing to do any treatment. Hopefully I'm just there to chat with people.
Nice.
Is there any other events that you're looking at? We know that you're going to be the title sponsor for Tundra Toss. Is there any other events coming up this year that we possibly see you at as well?
Yeah, there's some in the works. As you know, it's still a little early in the year for TDs to have kind of all the I's dotted and T's crossed yet. So I'm looking at being out at the Edmonton area ones. So hopefully I'll be at River City Cup and hopefully I'll be at Edmonton Open. So that's what I did last year, is I was at both of those events. And that'll be kind of more a typical kind of like physio on-site treatment setup. The hours of that and exactly how that's going to look, that's still going to be up in the air. We'll figure that out closer too.
Nice. Going back to when you were at the Edmonton Open there, like you said, you played the round and then you went and worked afterwards as well. Like that's a pretty long day.
It was a long day for me. So Edmonton Open was set up where the AMs and the pros were staggered. So pros played and then AMs and then pros and then AMs. And so I played my pro round and then, or maybe it was backwards, I forget. So I played my round and then I signed my scorecard and everything, ran right back to the physio tent and then treated people for 2.5 hours and then grabbed my bag, ran out on the course again, played another round and then ran back, and I was around for the rest of the night. So it was a long day for me. That's kind of part of what's still in the works, is I would love to be able to grab another physio from the clinic here to kind of like help me make that not quite as like chaotic of a day. But then also to provide service for the entire portion of that event. That was one of the downsides of that setup, is when I was out playing around, the tent was closed. So they're like, if you did have an injury and they were coming off the course as I was leaving, I just wouldn't be able to see them for 2 hours until I got back from my round. So I'd love to be able to grab another physio here from the clinic, but that's still six odd months away. So I can't exactly ask anyone else to commit to a weekend 6 months in advance. So we'll see. I got hopes though. I did the opposite at River City. River City this past year, I didn't end up playing. I just ended up treating the entire day instead. So I was there for both the pros and the AMs, which worked better in the sense that there's always physio available if someone needed it. But selfishly, I wasn't able to play River City Cup, and I love that tournament. So I'd love to be able to rig it so I can still play.
Well, the weather conditions this year, maybe it wasn't so bad that you weren't playing. It was
I don't know. If I was playing, I would have at least been moving. I would have been a lot warmer. I was just sitting under a tent, and I was pretty darn chilly.
Yeah.
Well, and depending on how intensive the treatments you're doing there too, is you're probably just as tired. Your hands are aching and everything else.
Yeah, and they're cold and achy. It's even worse.
Yeah. Well, now, if you're going to be out there representing, the one thing I don't think I've seen on you, maybe you have it, maybe you don't, but is Sonny bought into getting you a nice Pursuit of Motion jersey to be sporting when you get out there?
Full sponsorship? No, he is not. Yeah. No, he is not. I got to get on him about that. I can be our clinic's first sponsored athlete.
Well, now that you're on the Edmonton area's largest podcast about disc golf.
That's a bargaining chip right there. Yeah, I'll bring it into negotiations with me.
I had a question for you. I just want to bring it back to the treatment and things like that. I know, you said about the tennis elbow or the disc golf elbow, whatever we want to call it. I know when I first started playing, when I first got into disc golf, and I actually had a full day to be able to go out, and I played 2 rounds in one day. It was very early on, and I felt it right in my elbow. Like, it's really sore. And what went through my mind was, okay, I need to go to the pharmacy. I need to go grab a tensor bandage, put that on. That's going to help. I know, Jeremy, you wear, I don't know if you still do, but I know I've seen you wear tensor bandages on your knees because you've had some knee problems sort of thing. Like, are tensor bandages a benefit, and what do they actually do?
Yeah, so tensor or any kind of compression, right? We get a very similar effect out of like a compression sleeve or a knee sleeve or all these other kind of areas.
I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. Those are really darn good if there's any sort of swelling in the area. That's the main thing they try to fight back against. Is they try to fight back against swelling or kind of puffiness or edema, if we want to use the medical term for it. If there's any of that going on, then I recommend patients make use of those. So if you do have like a chronic, like a knee issue, and it always swells up on me whenever I go running, then that's where something like a knee sleeve can be really good to kind of like stop that before it even starts, which can reduce some of the pain down the line as well. They don't help a whole heck of a lot for like if you have a stability concern where like the knee is moving too much and it needs support. Like just that knee sleeve doesn't add a ton of support to the area. It's a pretty flimsy guy, right? Like it just kind of squeezes the knee. Good for what it does. So it certainly can be helpful for some of those. Similar thing for after you did just like sprain something, right? If you sprain an ankle, then using something like a tensor bandage to kind of compress the area and get the swelling out of there can be helpful. But only if there's swelling. If you're wrapping up something that doesn't need to reduce in swelling, then there's nothing for it to squeeze.
Right. So from my understanding, though, I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you. This is just the way that I would think it as a novice.
Tristan, feel free to use this line if it comes up.
the body's natural reaction against an injury is to make it swell. It provides that kind of buffer or padding or however you want to, the extra fluid or whatever against that injury. If you're restricting that swelling, is that not a bad thing?
No, that's a great question. I love that because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and it's like you're smarter than some of our researchers about 20 odd years ago. So,
hang on, producer, can you clip that, please? Thank you.
Yes,
yeah. So some of the old research came up with this nice acronym called R.I.C.E, which I'm sure a lot of us have heard, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. And so that was what we were supposed to do anytime anything got injured was R.I.C.E it, right?
Yeah.
And those are all targeted towards getting rid of that inflammatory response where something kind of gets mad and angry. And we can all picture that nice big swollen ankle after you sprain your ankle, right? However, just like you said, then we did some more research into it and we learned that, yeah, sure, those things are good at getting rid of that inflammatory response. But the inflammatory response is the body does that for a reason, right? Your body's pretty darn smart.
Right.
And so that inflammatory response is a combo of bringing more building blocks to the area to repair the damage and building and bringing some other cells to the area that almost like suck up the garbage, like the garbage trucks, right? So get rid of all the damaged stuff, bring in all the new stuff, kickstart that process, and then bring a bunch of blood and other nutrients to the area as well. That's what's going on in that inflammatory process. So we don't want to stop that. You're absolutely right. So we've changed in our management a lot recently. In the physio world and in the medical world as well, to kind of take R.I.C.E out of it. And actually the researcher who came up with R.I.C.E then submitted a paper about 20 to 25 years ago, so a while ago. He submitted a paper actually disavowing R.I.C.E. He said, I was wrong. We found out more. That's no good. I apologize. I was wrong. I've changed my mind. And so that it's about 25-ish. I don't know the exact date on the paper off the top of my head. It's about 25-ish years back that happened. Unfortunately, it takes some time for that to trickle down the lines, right? It's I have the privilege of reading all these things hot off the privilege or hot off the press, but that's not the case for everyone, right? So now we've actually changed to a much longer acronym called Peace and Love. So it's like 12 things instead of 4 things. I won't go through all of it because I can only remember 70% of it off the top of my head. But really what we try to do now instead is we let that inflammatory process happen for the first day or two. But typically 48-ish hours is kind of our cutoff. That's kind of the amount of like, we want the ankle to swell up, but then we want it to come right back down again once it's done the good job. So we try to keep it moving, right? We know that can start to decrease that inflammatory response is to just do some gentle motion. Again, if we bring it to the ankle, that's like some ankle circles, just moving it in some motions. We try to use the area as quickly as we can. So we try to get you walking as quickly as you're ready for. We avoid anti-inflammatories. So we don't want to take anti-inflammatory drugs right off in that first 48 hours because we don't want to kill that good response. And then later on, that's when we start to, if it's still lingering at 48 hours, then we can start to talk about maybe some compression and some elevation. And even in those, ice is now out of the picture as well. We just know that's not very good at getting rid of swelling. So we'll focus on the compression and elevation instead. So things have changed. But yeah, great question.
Yeah. And then just while we're on the subject as well, sorry, Jimmy. Well, I'm always confused and I always get told, but I always forget which order it goes in. You do have an injury. Is it heat first or ice first? Or is one better than the other?
So again, things are changing. We know that neither of them are any better or worse than the other. Typically in that first 48 hours, right, when we're letting things swell up, we're letting things get angry, we're letting things kind of do the good work of getting rid of the bad stuff, bringing in the new stuff. We don't do either. I'll tell my patients just kind of let the ankle be. If they really have to use something in that period, then we can use ice, but that's really only as like a natural painkiller. If the pain is tolerable and if they can stand it, then I'll go without it. But we can use ice for like the numbing factor of it, not for the healing properties, but for the numbing factor, then it can be useful. Once we get outside of that 48 hours, then if anything, I'll use heat at that time.
Okay. Because that's always, what I always get told is, or even just mentally, I think, you've hurt your back, you've gone out shoveling the driveway, use something that's happening right now. You feel a little bit stiff. Oh, you know what I need? I just need a hot bath. And that kind of tends to be your remedy, your fix for that issue. So
yeah. And that heat, the hot bath, the hot shower, the hot tubs, right? They have more an effect of a relaxing effect than they do like a healing effect. We know now that our body is so good at regulating our core temperature. It's going to need to be a really darn big heat pack that you put on yourself to actually change how hot your knee is, right? Like our body is way too smart for that to be enough. And so they have just as much of an effect of just kind of like letting the muscles relax and just letting you release and sink into that hot tub. And that can be much more effective than any sort of like healing properties of it. But we're getting down to the weeds of the science of healing now, the physiology, the pathophys.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Probably a lot of mental as well. Like you said, just the fact that you feel you're in the hot bath, you feel better. You're thinking that's making your knee your swelling go down or your back pain go away. It's all mental. So.
Yeah, sure.
Or not all mental. Should say that some mental.
Yeah. Well, Darryl, you kind of led us to the next thing a little bit there, because we were talking about heat. And you know what one of the hot things is the nice hot sun shining down in the middle of the ocean. And,
Yeah.
maybe that's a cue.
It definitely could be. So just we've been talking about different scenarios and different things like that. So one scenario I want to throw out to you is just imagine you're on a nice cruise. You finished the disc golf season. You're out on a cruise. You're in the off season, but unfortunately, the ship goes down. You swim to shore. Luckily, you've got your disc golf bag with you, but some of the discs fell out, and you end up on a disc golf island, and it has a nice 18 hole disc golf course built on there for you. Which 3 discs are you hoping that you have in your bag?
So in this scenario, I was bringing my discs on a cruise with me, and I was like hoping to swim to shore with them as a raft, or how does this happen here, Darryl?
It's your most beloved 3 discs that you don't want to leave behind. You take them with you everywhere you go.
Yeah. I'm not grabbing onto my wife or son in this scenario. I'm grabbing onto my 3 discs and making sure they don't go down with the ship.
Yeah.
3. I get 3. Oh, geez.
In the past, people have typically, like you just did there. People overthink the situation. People have just, I always say a putter, a mid-range, and a driver. Obviously, if you listen to previous episodes, Tim went with 2 Firebirds and a Firefly.
That sounds like Tim. Yeah.
People have used zones for putters. People have used, there's all different scenarios. You make up your bag however you want, but these 3 discs, which ones,
We can give you just a moment more to think about it and tell you that Darryl right now, when he lands on that island, he's rocking a Berg, which is soon to be replaced by a Ringer GT. He's also got an Echo in there, and he's got a Vandal. That's what he's sitting with.
Okay.
Me, you saw me just the other night. I'm sitting with that EV7 Phi. Definitely got that for a putter. Then I've got my Lazadal Hex, and then I've got a Falk is what I've got for mine.
Okay.
So now what are you going to do to slap us down if the 2 of us end up with those discs right beside you?
So I had to make a call kind of similar to this last summer. I didn't go down on any cruise ships, but I did a trip out to the island with my wife and out to Vancouver Island, and I knew that the town that we were staying in, we stayed in kind of the Comox region. I knew that they had a couple disc golf courses over on the island. Nice. But of course, we were just going out for a week trip, so I didn't bring I didn't want to bring my disc golf bag. I knew I'd be able to sneak out and go for a round. So I just brought 3 discs, and I had no idea what this course looked like, so I had to figure it out. So the ones I ended up taking is I brought a Nomad. That's my putting putter. Okay. And I typically don't throw the Nomad like in day to day, but I knew that if I threw it, it's similar enough to one of my throwing putters that I can make it work. So I'd bring my Nomad, Electron Soft Nomad, and then I would bring my favorite buzz. I got an ESP one with a Memorial stamp on it, Memorial Tournament stamp that I've just beat in perfectly. So it's a nice dead straight buzz. Probably pretty darn similar to that Hex that you have at this point in time by how much trees I've hit with it. That's one that's got one of my aces on it too. So a nice sentiment as well. And then I'd probably bring another ace disc as well. I got a really beat up resistor, which started off really stable, but now it's kind of like a pretty straight fairway that I throw all the time. So probably, straight putter, straight mid, straight fairway. We can make it work, whatever the course looks like.
There you go. Not the first time that we've had anybody say that they're bringing a Nomad. Kristen Swirls brought the Nomad for her.
Kristen knows
she
her putters.
Brought the Nomad for the button approach.
Yeah. I'm very sad to leave behind my zones. I think I bagged 4 zones typically.
4 zones, but yet you didn't want to bring one of them with you on the island. You went for the buzz instead.
That's a tough cut. That's a tough cut. But the buzz, I don't know. You're making me second guess it, Darryl. No, I'll stick with it. I'll make it work. But yeah, normally I bag 4 zones. That's just off the list. If I can sneak a 4th disc into my desert islands, it's gonna be one of my zones.
Awesome. Well, you know what though? There is a first about this desert island disc, Darryl. This is our first guest who has gone to an island with 3 discs.
There you go. Yeah, a real life desert island disc, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I guess we should ask, how did those rounds go with the 3 that you brought?
They went pretty good. If I had looked at the course a little bit closer on UDisc, I probably shouldn't have brought any drivers to that course. It was like a really short, it was kind of like a Langholm-ish course, but with a lot more trees on it, a lot more nice, beautiful island trees. So I probably should have brought probably like a zone instead of that resistor instead. But I don't think I threw that resistor one time. I just carried it around with me like a dummy the whole time and just like, hey, look at this nice, pretty disc. But hey.
Oh, that's awesome.
Should have done my research.
Well, Tristan, that brings us kind of to the end of what we had for questions for you. But what we want to do before we let you go is just give you a moment. If there's anything you wanted to say or to promote or to talk about, this is your time. So go right ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, if anyone has any questions about anything that we chatted about here, feel free to reach out to me. You can either kind of find me on some socials or find me on a course. Like I said, I'm always around, especially Tuesdays and Thursday mornings on your local course somewhere, as I'm trying to sneak in around before work. Or you can shoot me an email here at the clinic as well. That's just my name, Tristan, at pursuitofmotion.com. You can find that up on our website as well. Look out for me for sure at Welcome Day. I'll be out there with some stuff. If you got any questions about physio or kind of any sort of aches and pains that you'd even just like me to kind of take a quick look at, I'm more than happy to kind of take 5 minutes and talk through some stuff with you. And then I'll be around some tournaments as well. Hopefully I'm not needed at any of those tournaments. Hopefully I'm just sitting on my thumbs all day long and no one get injured at all, but I'll be around. Yeah, always happy to chat, especially with fellow disc golfers. My favorite people to treat because I know your sport the best.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tristan. We appreciate having you on the show, and it was fantastic. We can't wait to get out there and see you. We'll see you at Tundra Toss. We're going to be there as well. We're playing in the tournament, and like I said, hopefully we're just coming by to say hi.
That's right. Hopefully I'm never needed, right? Trying to work myself out of a job.
There you go.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Perfect. Thanks, Tristan.
How about that, Darryl? We did it again.
I don't want to keep saying they keep getting better and better because that kind of doing a disservice to the previous guests. But I think each episode, I think we're just hitting it out of the park with these guests. We may not be interviewing Gannonberg. We may not be interviewing Calvin Heimberg. We may not be interviewing those people that everybody gets on the podcasts. But we're getting the guests that mean a lot more to the golfers, our level, our people that we're getting the questions answered that pertain to our everyday disc golfers, and there's a lot more a kinship to our guests, I think.
Yeah, well, and as you say that, the other thing I'm thinking about with it is that last week we talked with Brendan, and I couldn't stop talking about course design. That's something that I learned a lot of information that I didn't know. We learned a lot about the behind the scenes of how a disc golf store works, how sponsorship works. And then today, I've done a lot of physio, as I mentioned, in my life, but I learned so many things, like, just that whole fact that, you mean for the last 25 years that I've been using R.I.C.E, it's not been the right thing to do?
Yeah, exactly. It's the way things go, right? In the olden days, they thought that giving a baby a whiskey to on a soothe or whatever to go to bed was a nice way to make it to go to sleep, sort of thing. But times change, opinions change, and research and things like that. And just the same with the right aspect. Even with the stretching, dynamic stretching is better than static stretching. Like you said, like he was saying, that how many times when we were growing up at school did the phys ed teacher get you to put your arm across your chest, get your arm across this chest, do lunges and things like that to try and stretch out those muscles.
Right. Yeah. And then still to this day, like I just even think of, you watch the beginning of any kid's sport, if it's volleyball, if it's soccer, whatever it is, there is that 10 to 15 minute stretching routine for them to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost counterintuitive because, like, whenever I used to go running, or even before I go for a hike or whatever, I always feel like I need to bend over and touch my toes. I want to stretch out my hamstrings. I want to stretch out my calves. But that's static stretch, right? I mean, it may, I was always taught not to bounce because you don't want to have that bouncing when you're stretching. It's one of those stretches where you stretch and then you hold it for 10 or 15 seconds, and then you'll find that you can push it that extra little bit further. But I don't know, maybe next time we go out on the disc golf course and, me and you were together and I see you starting to do your stretch routine, I mean, maybe I can bring it back and say, Tristan told you not to.
Well, you can do that if I'm putting my arm across my chest and just doing that one. But when you see me moving as I'm stretching, you better not give me a hard time.
Like you said, the arm circles and things like that. Get the shoulders moving. Definitely warming up on the putting basket. Getting that motion with your elbow, your arms. And then, if you have the ability to throw a couple 50% mid ranges on the first hole, that's going to be way better than the static stretch. So I think we all learned something today.
I do like that idea, like you said, and I have one of those little, actually another shout out to Mike Carey on this one was last year for Winter Clinic. He had 3D printed us like a piece of a disc, and then you take a zip tie and you put it onto a rag or a towel. And then what you end up having is you have a nice light piece item where you can kind of whip it and snap it and get the motion. So as you said, that's something I can do to warm up and actually do the physical motion of disc golf, and then throw a few putters, throw a few mids. That just makes so much sense once you hear it. And it's not necessarily maybe, we've talked about this before, is 10 people can tell you it, but it takes the right person to tell you it. And I think tonight was the right person to tell me that tip.
And it makes sense really when you see the pros, you see them running up to the tee pad and they do their mock throw and they do their follow through. We all think they're just practicing their throw, but there's something to actually getting that range of motion as well. So another great guest, a lot more information. Hopefully people, leave comments leave us a comment, how much new information that they've gained, and hopefully they enjoy these guests that we keep getting on.
Yes, exactly. Well, we're towards the end of the episode, and you and I like to talk and give everybody an update on what's happening in the Edmonton area and the disc golf scene. And two of the things that are going on right now are Winter League, of course, and Putting League. So, so Winter League last week was at Rundle.
Yep.
And I was out there chasing a +3 is what personally, I'm going to give you a little personally, because I guess it is our podcast. I can talk about those things, can I?
Yeah, you can. You have the floor.
So in order for me to improve in Winter League when we're at Rundle, I need to get less than a +3. But when we got out there, Darryl, the weather was nice. It was warm enough. I didn't feel too bad. I had a thin pair of gloves, but there was a wind out there.
Which is typical for the River Valley, yeah. I'm guessing that didn't fare too well in your favor.
Well, hole 1, okay, hole 2, okay. I don't want to go through hole by hole, but as we get going there, even things were looking up with I think I had a nice try at a birdie on hole 3. So it was just kind of a nice par type round that was happening. And then got out to hole 5, which is at this point in the Winter League layout is the long hole.
Right.
And I'm typically a hyzer thrower, as you know. So I pulled out my musket, but with the wind as strong as it was, it turned it over. It went right of the Mando tree. Mando's not in play, but still right. That's trouble. And by the time we got through that hole, I think I shot a 7. And I was happy at the end of the round that I finished with a +7, I believe, or a +6. It was it was up there. So there was no records being broken by me.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, conditions are hard, right? Disc golf is hard. If it was easy, then we probably wouldn't find it so enjoyable. It just gives you something to strive for next time.
Well, that's it. And even with all of that, I still had a great round. I still enjoyed myself. It was fantastic that way. Now, normally, who are the 2 names you hear when I say who had the best round of the week? There's probably 2 names you hear over and over again.
Dylan Froelich, Uncle Steve Newman.
What would you say if I told you neither of those people had the hot round of the week?
I would be amazed.
Well, be amazed, my friend.
Who you're going to give a new name this week? Someone we've never heard of, maybe?
Well, you've heard of him because he's the only one so far in league who has actually aced a hole.
Right, okay.
So that would be Jacob Neufeld. So congratulations to him. He had the hot round. I I wish I was better prepared to tell you exactly what the number is. I can just throw one out there and offer a correction later, but I believe it was.
If you don't say it, if you just open your mouth and don't say anything, I'll put the score up on the bottom of the screen. So it'll look
okay.
like
Ready? Let's do that.
Yeah.
We'll get ready.
But don't tell anybody we're going to do this though. Okay?
No, we won't tell. Okay, producer, get ready. Here we go. We're going to do another take on this one.
Okay.
So Jacob Neufeld, he had the hot round with a -2 this week. I don't know.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. What we're gonna do after we finish recording, we're gonna get you saying -1, -2, minus, and I'll just pick and I'll cut the right score, and no one will know, Jeremy. It's like seamless.
That's right, and I think I made just enough mouth motions to cover it. There were not any extra ones there at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, awesome. But yeah, he had the hot round, so good for him.
Yeah, we had a great turnout, and guess what? A person came out who we haven't seen at all this year at Winter League. We thought
Easter Bunny.
Yes, it was almost like that. It was almost like the Sasquatch, or like you said, the Easter Bunny. Those people you never see, but the one and only, and I'm using the one and only president of EDGA, Tim Plamondon, came out.
Wow, yeah, nice for him to probably one of his got some free time. And where else are you going to spend your free time? If you get an open weekend, where else are you going to spend it?
Yeah, so it was great to have him out there. So thanks for him for coming out and playing around with us as well. And then Putting League was just last night.
Yeah.
And we got to do a number of different things with that, including, of course, the putting game. And I know you love to guess putting games. So what do you think Terry had in store for us this time?
Okay, so let's just recap. We've had the straddle putt.
Yes.
We've had the elevated basket on a chair.
Nope.
No, we didn't have that?
Nope.
Oh, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought she had it elevated. We had the chains tied up. We had the push putt, right?
We had, chains tied up with an Anheuser putt.
We had the push putt over the table.
Yes. From the knee.
Well, then I'm going to go again and say it was an elevated basket.
No, but I'm going to think she's going to have to do one of those soon, because I just don't know how she comes up with a new one every week.
Do I get another guess, or is that my guess? Is that open?
Well, that's the official guess, but you can always go for your side prize if you want. Your participation medal.
Prize. I'm going to say this was a putt around an obstacle. She put something in the middle of directly in line with the basket, and you had to pick a side, left or right.
Oh, you are so close with this one.
Okay, Jeremy, put me out of my misery. What was Terry's game for this week?
Well, what she did is she repurposed a rolling coat rack that was in the space.
Right.
So what she did was she rolled it over, and then she took 2 of the tablecloths and hung those over the coat rack, making like a tunnel right in the center of the coat rack. And then she pushed it about 5 feet in front of the basket. So now you had to, what they were saying was it was forcing you to do a spin putt, because you had to keep it low enough that you didn't go over the bar of the coat rack, and you had to keep it straight enough because you couldn't let it float left or right, because you'd never get past the tablecloths.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess you said last week you went over the table, which was like your push putt.
Mm-hmm.
And this week was underneath the curtain rail, or the coat rail, so forcing you to do a spin putt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do like to toot my own horn once in a while, so toot toot. I thought you might like that.
That was good. And that wasn't even me putting on extra sound effects. That was perfect.
That's right. I think I've told people I've got a second career as a Foley artist. I can do these sounds and make them up. But no, I don't know what it was, Darryl. That's the putt I need to do is 25 feet, and I need somebody to put a coat rack in front of the basket.
Just drag one around with you so you did well.
Yes, so when we do that, we have 5 putters in our hand, and we do a total of 25 putts. That's what we do. So we do 5 putts 5 times. That's how many did you get in?
Yeah,
so
5 times 5.
Yeah, I went 19 straight.
Wow!
Before I missed one.
Right.
and then I missed one more. So I had 23 out of 25. So I was the hot hand, baby.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, maybe you need to change your putt because you typically, like you say, you're that floaty push putt. Maybe, and you're putting with the fee, or fi. So it's not like you have to change your putter.
No.
Maybe you just need to change your putting style.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when we were talking, and Mark, our friend of the show there, he said, you know what I'm going to do, Jeremy, is I'm going to get you big horse blinders and just put them on your head when you putt.
Yeah.
He's like, and that's about as close as we're going to get to set you up for the same style of putt.
Yeah, get the horse blinders on. You get a baseball cap and pull the brim down low so that you just have this tight little tunnel that you can see.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I guess what it is I'm easily distracted is maybe really what this comes down to.
Really good job. 23 out of 25.
Yeah. Well, and then the other two things, of course, that happen at Putting League is that we get the 50-50 draw that comes out. And this was just for some money. Kevin Pattison, he won it this round, another buddy of ours. And he took the money home. I think he took like $15 home. There wasn't a ton of people out this week or participating in it.
Okay.
And then Frozen Ace comes up again.
Right, yes.
And guess whose name gets drawn?
Well, friend of the show, Mark.
Nope.
Kevin Pattison.
Nope.
Yours.
Nope. But you know what? Maybe if I tell you heard this name just in our last episode, that might help you.
Well, maybe, could it be Wally?
Yes, it was Wally again.
Wow. So hopefully, I'm hoping that this is leading up to that there was a different outcome this time.
Well, there was a different outcome. You are correct. So I think there's $80 on the line is what there is right now in the Frozen Ace. So Wally stepped up, and last time when he won, when his name was picked, he stepped up there and he went a little low. So he missed it. This time he stepped up.
Yeah.
He didn't go low, but he went a little high.
a bit of an overcorrection from last week.
That's right. So I think next week, if he gets his name drawn, first of all, we'll have to check that ballot box to make sure it wasn't rigged. But
yeah,
I guess he's got left and right, and then he could go center. Is that kind of what we got?
It could do, yeah.
Well, you know what was funny after that was I grabbed Kristen Swirls, another friend of the show, and I said to Kristen, I said, okay, Kristen, and I think I even used the deep, dark voice a bit. I said, Kristen, your ticket has been drawn. You're on the line for $80. You've already got $5 in your pocket because your name was drawn. Everybody's watching. We're all rooting for you. You've got one disc in your hand. Put it in the basket. So we both took one disc, and that was tried to really set it up to give her that same thing, just to say, could we do it?
Yeah.
So she didn't do it.
Okay.
I didn't do it.
Obviously there's a reason why it's called the ace putt, right? It's a difficult putt to sink. So,
but you know who stepped up after us?
Oh,
Mr. One, Tim Plamondon, and he put it in right after us with one disc. So don't draw that man's name.
Yeah, with his firefly.
Yeah, that's right. It was with, I think he's got 5 fireflies. That's what he's throwing for sure.
Yeah. Well, at least it can be done then. It's not one of those, funfair sideshow games that are rigged in the favor of the funfair. Just goes to show you that it can actually be done.
Yes, it can. And credit to some other people too. One of the Lychuk brothers, they put one in, and once you get enough chances at it, but I think it's always when you've got the pressure on and you've got one and it is for money, that's when you really get the test of where your putting's at.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't think we mentioned it in the beginning, but we always try and mention it in the beginning. We never really do, but we always save it for the end. But if anybody's listening at this point, then
thank you.
Good job. Leave a comment in. I want to feel. I don't want to make it too obvious. I don't want just to say a number and then somebody put the number in the comments to say that they listened this far. But if we can sneak a word in, if we can say a word right now, and then in the comments get someone to leave that word in the comments in a sentence, so that nobody else can copy the word.
Oh, good idea.
But nothing disc golf related. Maybe we can just throw a different word. If you've been listening this far into the podcast, maybe that'll be a little fun thing that we can get them to say.
Well, I think what we can use is if I'm sitting here and I'm looking straight ahead, I've got one of my lights propped up on some board games.
Okay, there you go.
So one of the board games in front of me has the man with the top hat on it. So let's use Monopoly.
There you go. If you've listened this far into the podcast, don't just write the word Monopoly. Put it in a sentence so that other people can't guess what the word is, and then we will know that you've listened to the end of the show. And maybe you'll get a shout out next week. So there you go. But while we're talking about leaving comments and things like that, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a like on the video. And if you're just listening to this episode and you haven't, please subscribe. And also go and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok as well. Any platform really we're on. Everywhere at Chainout Podcast, except for Instagram, where it's at Chainout_podcast.
Yeah.
And then while we're talking about socials, Jimmy.
Yes.
We have something big lined up.
We do.
We are looking. We don't want to say exactly what it is, but something is going to come when we reach a certain milestone.
Yes,
that's
we're going to
say.
That's all we'll say for now. We're putting something together here. It's in the works. It's on the way. And once we get it, we're going to give it a chance to show you guys on the pod and tell you all about how you have a chance to get your own contest win.
There you go. Exactly. It all comes back full circle. It's just our little way of giving back. If you like and subscribe our videos and follow us on all the platforms, it's just a little way of giving back to you. So more details follow, I think.
Yeah. And with that too, we've talked about milestones in a while, and we didn't talk about it recently because we didn't have one. But as of today, we kind of do. Because I think when we shouted out about our YouTube subscribers before, we told you we had 20 and we were excited. Yeah. And then we had 40 and we were excited. And right before the show, Darryl and I took a look. And we are now at 60 subscribers.
60. Yeah, it's amazing how every time it almost seems that every time we check, it's gone up another number. You know, and then we think, okay, well, maybe we've gotten to a point now where everybody who's going to listen is going to listen or going to subscribe, sort of thing. But every day it just keeps climbing up.
So thanks for that. Keep it coming. Yeah, we're like, have we got all of the Edmonton area and then the Alberta area and hopefully the Canadian listeners?
I mean, a little bit of foreshadowing, but, we like Tim said, we have over 400 EDGA members. So Tim keeps reposting our videos. I know Edmonton Disc Golf on Instagram keeps reposting the clips and things like that. So if everybody that follows EDGA came and followed us and subscribed to the YouTube channel, then it wouldn't be too long before we were anywhere near that magical 400 number. Would be awesome.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So with that, another thing we haven't done in a while too, Darryl, is we haven't talked about some of our big name Canadian disc golfers, our pros. And I wanted to talk about it because I had kind of an exciting moment for me lately, which I didn't really realize was something that happens. And it probably happens on a regular basis, but I just didn't even occur to me. So we've been following Thomas Gilbert, we've been following Casey Hannemeyer, we've been following Chantel Budinksy, all the top pros in Canada.
Yeah.
And Thomas Gilbert was doing a big giveaway. I think he had like 30,000 follower giveaway or something like that. It was this huge prize pack he'd put together.
Show off.
Yeah. But I guess he's earned it.
Yeah. So
when he went live today, and I just happened to have a chance to go on and check it out and be part of it.
Yeah.
And while he was doing it, he's such a nice guy. He's so accommodating. He said, I'm going to wait for some people to get on this live broadcast. And while I do it, I'll answer questions. And he legitimately was just scanning the list of everybody's comments and questions and trying to quickly answer as many of them as he could.
Yeah.
And I think I threw over the time he was on there, I threw 4 questions his way, and he acknowledged every single one of them. And I'm like, what? I just had a 4-question conversation with Thomas Gilbert.
There you go. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I actually did go back and watch it. I didn't, he was answering the questions. He didn't always shout out the person's name. So I didn't hear your name mentioned or anything like that. But, yeah, like you said, a nice guy, took the time, didn't just come straight on, do his giveaway and then leave again. He actually came on. I think he was on for 15 or 20 minutes.
Yes.
answering questions, and then selected a lucky winner of the 30,000 follower giveaway, which is a great prize as well. So yeah, I mean, never have a bad word to say about Thomas.
No. And the one thing too with Thomas, here's a couple more things I wanted to mention about him right now, was in that live feed, there were some questions of what tournaments is he playing there, where people just kept asking, are you playing this? Are you playing this? Are you playing this? Are you playing this? And a few of the ones that were asked one was the Tournament Capital Open in Kamloops. That's just getting ready. I think it's got some limited opening to their registration. But he said, yes, I will be at the Tournament Capital Open. And then someone asked, will you be at the Foxwood Open that's out in Ontario? And he was, yes, I will be back at the Foxwood Open. I think he plans on being in Ontario for most of May playing some tournaments.
Yeah.
And then the third thing he said was he will definitely be at Canadian Nationals. Apparently there's a couple other fairly sizable, not pro tour tournaments, but big tournaments in the US. And people were asking about those. And he's like, nope, that's Nationals weekend. Won't be there. Nope, that's Nationals weekend. I will be at Nationals. So we're really edging to get to Clearwater. We've been tossing around whether we can do 2 BC trips and maybe get to TCO. But if we get to Nationals, we'll get to maybe meet him in person.
There you go. Yeah, maybe we've talked about it before that, when we started, our goal by the end of the year or by 5 years or whatever the case, whatever our game plan was.
I think you said 5 years.
Yeah, okay. I said 5 years because that was back in the early days and I didn't think that anybody would listen to this podcast. But we set that goal of like, those are Canadian disc golfers, Chantel Budinksy, FPO, Thomas Gilbert, MPO. Those are the kind of, like, I don't even want to say 2 holy grails because I think
I was going to say the royalty of Canadian disc golf.
maybe something like that. Yeah, but they were like the, what we were striving for, who, the top names that we thought that we could interview. But, maybe everything comes, maybe everything is done for a reason. And if we get up to Nationals, he's there, and we're out there with the little cameras and microphones, and maybe by then he's heard of us.
Are you saying we're going to be paparazzi? Is that what we're doing?
No, we're not going to be paparazzi. We're going to be media. We're going to have little media batches.
Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, the other thing about Thomas as well was last year, and he said it in his videos, working on his OB, and he didn't get a really high shout out there on Tour Life when they were doing some stats because he wasn't really the highest in some of those stats. But the one thing is I've been checking out some of the videos he's posted, and even in that live chat, he was talking about how he has revamped his entire backhand form, and he is looking good. Like, I think this is going to be a great season for him. If anything from what we're seeing in the videos he's posting is an indication, he's going to have a great year this year.
And he recently just won a tournament as well. His first tournament that he's won on American soil for quite a while, quite some time. So that just shows that it's a step in the right direction. And like you said, any of the throws that I've been seeing him throw just look buttery sweet. I think one of his videos I put a comment on. It was one. I think he might have said, what do you think I need to do this year, or what goals do you think I have for this season, or something along those lines? And I kind of posted a comment saying, because I know one of the videos he posted was that he was playing with Chris Clemens.
Yes.
And we spoke before about it with Joe, that he had Chris on one of his videos talking about not going OB because Chris has one of the lowest OB percentages on tour. So I made a comment saying, just don't forget what Clemenage said, and I'm sure you'll be fine. And he responded. He liked the comment. He responded. He's like, absolutely, you'll never forget it. So yeah, I think all things are looking definitely more positive this year, and hopefully, maybe we'll see him at the top end of the leaderboard instead of the.
And I think too, while we're talking about pros, I do want to shout out a couple more for a minute here before we wrap up. And one of them is, you and I have it on our to watch list, but we haven't watched it yet. So we'll suggest it for other people, is that Chantel Budinksy just put out a in the bag video. So you get an idea of what she's going to be throwing from Prodigy this year. So that's one that we're looking forward to watching, and you guys could put on your list. And the other person I wanted to shout out on the pro side of things, and not necessarily Canadian, but has a Canadian connection, and that is Raven. And she was Raven Klein, and she was up at Canadian Nationals in Thunder Bay. And if you haven't watched the Park Pro coverage, it's up there, and it's really good. It's done well, and that's a really exciting tournament to watch, especially that last round. So I'm not going to give any spoilers away at this point if you haven't watched it, because I know not everybody gets a chance to watch the past or the post-produced stuff. But she had a great tournament there, so really watch for the end of that. But she's just heading down on tour, and we were laughing earlier today because she put out a little video with kind of a Nacho Libre background to it, just showing what tour life is like. And you got to watch it. It's like, what is it, like 25 seconds or something, Darryl?
Yeah, something like 25, 30 seconds. Yeah, like you said, it was a good clip video on Instagram. Different camera angles, you edit it yourself together, things like that. So yeah, it's a good video, good watch.
Yeah. Well, moving from that news, we do have some other news. It's not the greatest news to announce, but we really want to take a chance to acknowledge it. And at this point here, unfortunately, we lost a disc golf store in Edmonton. So Gander Disc Golf is now closed. They just would have, by the time you're listening to this, they probably had their last sale on Saturday, their last date that they were going to be open to clear out their discs. And, we just want to take a moment and say thanks to Calvin for everything he did for the community, whether it was the Edmonton Open and all the different events that he sponsored, the fact that we actually had a brick and mortar disc golf only store in Edmonton, offering putting leagues, all of those things there. So hopefully you had a chance to go out and support him. Like, I was feeling a little bit hesitant about maybe going and buying the discounted discs, thinking I didn't want to feel like I was a vulture or something picking over stuff. But in talking to some other people, they kind of had communicated, well, every disc that he can sell is just some more money to help with the closure of the store, and something that he doesn't have to try and get rid of after that. So I know you and I both have bought a few discs, and by this point we've picked them up, and we want to still, Calvin's going to be in the community. We want to get him on the show at a time when it makes sense and when he wants to come on, because there's so many other things that he does for the disc golf community, and we want to talk about that. But at this point here, thank you, Calvin. And I'm sure you want to say something there too, Darryl. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just want to echo your words. Like you said, he's a great figure in the community. If you disc golf in Edmonton, then you know who Calvin is. All the work that he did, the TDing at the Edmonton Open, I did message him, and he did say that he was still going to TD the Edmonton Open this year at least. I don't know what he's going to do going forward. But yeah, with the EDGA Gander takedown, the event that they ran in the summer there, I was on that event as well. Always giving back to the disc golf community. Like I said, anyone who knows disc golf in Edmonton, if you didn't, not only the fact that we supported him during the end there, buying the discs, like you said, it had a bit of a bittersweet feeling to it, but hopefully people didn't just support him during the end. I know both of us have gone there and bought discs during the good times as well. And like you said, I had a bit of a relationship with him. Not really a relationship, I guess, but spoke to him a few times, volunteering for the Edmonton Open there. He was kind of my liaison. So yeah, it's sad news. He'll be missed, but hopefully there's a silver lining, something else. Hopefully he'll be still involved somehow in disc golf in Edmonton in the future. So fingers crossed, and we appreciate everything he's done.
Yes. And as you said, like I think we both kind of analyzed the amount of discs that we have, and I know over half of my discs came from Gander, including the first 3 that I bought when I started playing, and then even more recently, our Gyro Palooza boxes had come from him as well. Right. So thank you, Calvin. We really appreciate it, and wish you all the best, and we look forward to talking to you at another time. So thanks for that. And then let's roll it in before we end the episode. Let's roll it in with some good news. So I'm going to hand it over to you and talk a little bit about Tundra Toss.
Yeah, by this, a couple episodes ago, we did a live registration update while we were registering for Tundra Toss. We did warn everybody, get in quickly because registration.
We did.
Get in quickly because registration is going to be full. It was so full, in fact, that there was quite a few people on wait list. So they did announce that they've extended it from 18 holes to, it's going to be a 20-hole tournament. So you're getting 4 extra holes. So what do you like to say? 40 holes for the round of 30, for the price of 36?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Register now and you'll get 40 holes for the price of 36 at Tundra Toss 3 in Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah, so that's really exciting news. We knew it was going to sell out. I think last year they added a 19th hole, but this year they've had to add one more hole to that as well. So even if you don't come down for Tundra Toss, like I say, registration is full. But even if you come down on registration day, welcome day, pick up your bag tag, sign your NISCA waiver forms. There will be the little community event happening there. So we've already heard from Tristan that he will be on site. Celebrities from the Chainout podcast world will be on site as well. There'll be other people in the community available there. In what capacity, they have yet to announce, but it'll be a good day to come down and see everybody in the disc golf community and within Edmonton.
Yes. And I think an exciting part for everybody who was there last year, we all know what the 19th hole is. That's not going to change. That's going to be the same one. But the 20th hole is going to be a brand new hole for all of us. So it'll be pretty exciting. So yeah, we'll see you there. And Darryl, you know what?
What?
When we go play that 20th hole, we're going to be playing it blind.
We are.
And we're going to have some new discs in our bag that we picked up from Calvin there.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to play it blind, you should take a brand new disc that you just got from Calvin from Gander there.
Yeah.
Throw that disc at the basket. It's going to fly like a bird.
It is.
It's going to sail towards that basket.
Yeah.
It's going to go towards the chains. And the one thing it's not going to do, buddy, what's it not going to do?
Never ever will it.
Couldn't.
It will never ever.
Chain out. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. See you on episode 14.
14 next time.